You might think you've seen it all when it comes to wild weather, gusty storms, powerful typhoons, and terrifying tornadoes. But have you ever laid eyes on an ice tsunami? Or perhaps been under skies that turned as red as blood in broad daylight? Or watched in awe as waves as tall as a 5-story building swallowed up the shore? Yeah, extreme weather can get a whole lot weirder than just winds, rain, and hailstones. So join us as we delve into some of the most bizarre and jaw-dropping weather events ever captured on film. Number 20, the sea foam flood. Ever seen the sea spit out mounds of foam like a massive washing machine gone haywire? That's exactly what happens with sea foam. It's a natural spectacle caused when the ocean's organic matter, think algae, plankton, even bacteria and fungi, begins to break down. This process forms lots of bubbles that get tossed around by the wind and waves. Voila! You've got yourself some sea foam. Depending on the ingredients in the water, sea foam can range in color from white to brown and even yellow. Sometimes, when the conditions are just right, it can take over massive stretches of beach and stack up to several meters high. However, it's not all fun and games. There's a bit of a hidden danger to this foam party. The foam can cover anything from debris and rocks to logs and small animals. Get too close, and you might end up with a nasty surprise. That's why the experts advise us to look, but not touch. There could also be harmful bacteria or chemicals in there, which is another good reason to keep your hands off. You'll typically see this phenomenon after a storm, when the water's all churned up. Australia's east coast, for example, has seen several bouts of extreme weather in recent months, including floods, bushfires, and cyclones. This has led to quite a bit of sea foam. Take Froggy Beach, near the Gold Coast in Queensland, for instance. In December 2020, the entire beach was blanketed by this thick, brown foam, causing quite a stir among visitors and the media. Number 19. The upward lightning. Lightning that strikes from the ground up sounds a bit backwards, doesn't it? But that's exactly what upward lightning is all about. This type of lightning actually starts at the top of a tall structure and shoots upwards towards the storm cloud. There are actually two flavors of upward lightning. First, there's the lightning-triggered upward lightning. A positive lightning bolt hits the ground near a tall building or a tower. This changes the electric field around the tower, causing it to launch its own upward positive leader. This leader connects with a negative one coming down from the cloud, closing the circuit. This type is the most common and is responsible for about 90% of all upward lightning cases. Then, there's the self-initiated upward lightning. Here, there's no need for a preceding flash. Instead, the tall structure itself initiates the upward positive leader when the electric field from the storm cloud above it is strong enough. This usually happens during winter snowstorms or thunderstorms with weak or no precipitation. This leader then connects with a downward negative one from the cloud, closing the circuit. This is the rarer type, only accounting for about 10% of all upward lightning cases. For example, imagine a thunderstorm over Rapid City, South Dakota, USA. A positive cloud-to-ground flash could potentially trigger multiple upward leaders from tall towers in the city. Number 18. Baltic Sea thunderstorm. You know, thunderstorms aren't exclusive to land. They can get pretty wild out at sea, too, and the Baltic Sea is no stranger to these stormy parties. But how does this happen? Well, when warm, moist air starts rising rapidly in an unstable atmosphere, it forms massive clouds, some reaching dizzying heights of up to 20 kilometers. This is the birth of a thunderstorm. Although thunderstorms can pop up anywhere in the world, they tend to favor tropical and subtropical regions. Thunderstorms over the Baltic Sea might not be a daily occurrence, but when they do happen, especially during summer and autumn, they can get pretty intense. So what does a Baltic Sea thunderstorm bring along? Lightning that can strike up to 10 kilometers from the thunderstorm, thunder that can be heard up to 40 kilometers away, gusty winds that can whip up waves and cause flooding, heavy rain reducing visibility and causing landslides, and hail that can cause injuries. Take September 2020, for example. Finland was hit by a brutal storm named Aila, leaving over 80,000 households in the dark and messing up ferry traffic on the northern part of the Baltic Sea. Things got so bad that authorities had to tell people to stay indoors. Or the time in July 2019 when a ferry called Regina Seaways was caught in a massive thunderstorm while traveling from Klaipėda in Lithuania to Kiel in Germany. Lightning, wind gusts, heavy rain, the whole shebang. Thankfully, all passengers and crew were safe, if a bit scared. Number 17. Glacier tsunami. What sets off a glacier tsunami? Mostly, it's the rapid melting and retreat of glaciers due to climate change. As glaciers shrink, they leave behind steep, unstable slopes ready to collapse. The melting ice weakens the frost and ice, holding the rocks together, increasing the chance of landslides. Plus, the meltwater that collects at the base of glaciers in the form of lakes or ponds adds more energy for a potential tsunami. There have been numerous instances of glacier tsunamis worldwide, notably in mountainous regions like the Himalayas, British Columbia, and Alaska. Let's take a few examples. In November 2020, a massive landslide near the West Grenville Glacier in British Columbia caused a tsunami that ripped through the Elliott Creek Valley and the Southgate River estuary. The landslide was colossal, about 48 million cubic meters, and it traveled around 14 kilometers before hitting the lake. The tsunami wave got as high as 70 meters and flattened everything in its path, including trees, bridges, and buildings. Similarly, in October 2015, a huge landslide near the Tyndall Glacier in Alaska sparked off a tsunami that swept through the Tann Fjord. The landslide moved at speeds of up to 160 kilometers per hour, and the tsunami wave reached a terrifying 193 meters in height and eroded about 12 kilometers of shoreline. So, you see, while glacier tsunamis might not be everyday occurrences, when they do happen, they can cause extensive damage and pose a significant threat to life and property. Number 16. Flooding at the airport. So here's a wild story about Luton Airport. For those who might not know, Luton is one of the UK's major airports, handling over 16 million passengers every year. Well, one Friday in August 2019, this busy airport had quite the day. Torrential rain had poured down over the area, flooding parts of the airport terminal. The Met Office reported that the area was hit with 1.7 inches of rain in just 1 hour. The water gushed through the terminal roof, drenching the floors and creating huge puddles everywhere. There were even videos of the chaos, showing water leaking from the ceiling, luggage soaked, and people wading through ankle-deep water. Now, the runway and air traffic control tower weren't affected, so flights could still take off and land. However, some passengers weren't too happy about wading through the water to collect their bags or board their planes, and they felt the airport staff could have done a bit more in terms of communication and assistance. The whole event highlights how climate change impacts different sectors, including transportation. According to the Committee on Climate Change, UK's infrastructure is under threat from rising temperatures, sea level rise, storms, floods, and droughts. They emphasize the need for urgent action to adapt and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Number 15. The Frozen Lighthouse. You know Lake Michigan, right? It's one of the 5 Great Lakes of North America and the only one entirely in the U.S. Well, come winter and the region around the lake can get really chilly, often causing extreme cold and heavy snowfall. Now, imagine a lighthouse on the shore of Lake Michigan, a regular one, nothing unusual about it. But in winter, thanks to the freezing spray of the lake waves, it turns into something absolutely magical. No, it doesn't actually become a lighthouse made of ice, but the ice and snow coating it make it look like a structure straight out of a fantasy world. The recipe for creating these frozen lighthouses is pretty simple: icy cold temperatures, liquid water in the lake, and gusty winds. The temperature needs to dip below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which turns the water from the lake to ice as soon as it comes in contact with the lighthouse's surface. Depending on the direction and strength of the wind, these ice formations can reach dizzying heights of up to 70 feet. Places like St. Joseph, South Haven, Manistee, Ludington, Muskegon, Grand Haven, Frankfurt, and Charlevoix on Lake Michigan are famous for these icy spectacles. Number 14. Ice shove. Imagine you're living by the ocean or a massive lake, and one day you see a wall of ice slowly but steadily advancing onto the shore. Sounds like a scene from a fantasy novel, doesn't it? But this is a real phenomenon. It's called an ice shove. What's going on here, you ask? Well, This happens when the temperature fluctuates, winds pick up, or water levels change, leading to the ice being pushed onto the shore. This can pile up to impressive heights of 40 feet. Sounds unreal, right? But trust us, this isn't as rare as you might think. For instance, in December 2020, Utah Lake had an ice shove that created a wall of broken ice, reaching heights of up to 15 feet in some places. This was caused by strong winds blowing across the lake after a sudden cold snap. And then in March 2021, Lake Winnebago in Wisconsin saw an ice shove damaging several homes and docks along the northern shore of the lake. The warm southerly winds broke up the ice sheet and pushed it against the shore. Number 13, extreme winds. Now let's shift gears and talk about Mount Elbrus. Tucked away in the Caucasus Mountains, this is a dormant volcano and the highest peak in both Russia and Europe. Despite not being technically challenging to climb, Mount Elbrus is no walk in the park. You've got to deal with extreme weather conditions, including some seriously fierce winds. These winds can whip up blizzards, reduce visibility to almost zero, and make temperatures plummet below freezing. Imagine battling winds of up to 200 kilometers per hour at the summit. Sounds crazy, right? These extreme winds on Mount Elbrus are not just challenging, but they can be downright dangerous, even deadly. For instance, in September 2021, a group of 19 climbers faced a sudden blizzard while climbing over 5,000 meters up the mountain. The weather turned so quickly that one of them broke a leg, slowing down the group. 2 climbers unfortunately froze to death, and 2 others lost consciousness and later died while being rescued. The rescue operation itself was a tough task, thanks to the high winds, poor visibility, and freezing temperatures. Number 12, downburst. First off, what's a downburst? Essentially, it's a super strong blast of wind that gushes downwards and then spreads out in all directions when it hits the ground. We know it sounds like a tornado, but it's a different beast entirely. There are 2 types of downbursts, dry and wet. Dry microbursts are related to thunderstorms that don't bring much rain down to the ground, while wet microbursts happen during heavy rainfall. So how does a downburst form? Picture a thunderstorm creating a downdraft of cold air that's dropping from the cloud base pretty fast. When this air hits the ground, it goes wild, spreading horizontally in all directions. This creates powerful gusts of wind that can wreak havoc on structures, trees, power lines, and even aircraft. Hungary has seen its fair share of downbursts, particularly during summer, when thunderstorms are a common occurrence. For instance, on July 27, 2019, a downburst ripped through Nyírlugos, a village in eastern Hungary. It blew at around 75 mph and caused damage to roofs, cars, and crops. Then, in August 2019, a downburst hit Oroszlány, a town in central Hungary, uprooting trees and knocking down power lines with winds at around 80 mph. And in June 2020, various parts of Hungary, including the capital city Budapest, were affected by a downburst with wind speeds over 100 mph, leading to widespread damage and power outages. Number 11. Typhoon winds in Hong Kong. Let's hop over to Hong Kong now, a coastal city that's no stranger to typhoons. These tropical cyclones form over the western Pacific Ocean and can bring Hong Kong some pretty intense weather, including powerful winds, torrential rain, storm surges, and flooding. These conditions can cause a lot of damage and disrupt normal life quite a bit. In 2022, the most severe typhoon to hit Hong Kong was Nisat. It made landfall on October 18, 2022, packing winds of up to 156 kilometers per hour and was 147 kilometers wide. Now, HKO uses a warning signal system to alert people about upcoming typhoons. It has 8 signals, from 1 indicating that a typhoon is on the horizon to 10 indicating hurricane-force winds. Signal 10 is issued when wind speeds are expected to exceed 118 kilometers per hour at sea level. The last time a Signal 10 was issued in Hong Kong was on September 16, 2018. This was when Mangkhut, the most intense typhoon recorded in Hong Kong since 1946, hit the city. The typhoon brought gusts